Hello and welcome to the program. I am Deji Bademasi. Many politicians argue that in a diverse country like Nigeria with different interest groups and of course ethnicities, it is only fair for leadership positions to rotate so that every section of the nation can have a chance to lead, hence the concept of zoning. Now, to create a sense of fairness and equity in the quest for political offices, the country's opposition party, the People's Democratic Party, created zoning arrangement. And that was when the party, of course, was the party in power. Don't forget, the party was in power from 1999 until 2015 when it lost power. But with the number and caliber of people wishing to seek the party's ticket now to vie for the highest seat in the country, that's the presidency, the PDP is thrown into some sort of confusion. Not knowing what to do, the party set up a committee to decide, but that has even thrown it into further confusion as to the outcome of the panel's meeting. Of course, the panel's meeting, I should say, the outcome of the panel's meeting is covered in secrecy. But there are reports that the committee has recommended that the presidential ticket of the party for the 2023 elections be thrown open to all zones of the country. Now, if this recommendation is accepted by the party's National Executive Council, this means aspirants from any of the 6 geopolitical zones of the country could run for the position. That's for the position of the presidency. That's for the ticket. That's the presidential ticket of the party. And as a matter of fact, for any position, meanwhile, some members of the party and aspirants from the north have proposed a consensus arrangement for who becomes the flag bearer of the party from the north. However, with the look of things, the party would only achieve its goal of wresting power from the APC if only it makes haste to put its house in order, especially as far as this zoning issue go. So everyone is looking at the party to see what it is going to do, because it appears in the APC the issue of where its next presidential candidate will come from is settled. But in the PDP, it is still causing a lot of confusion. And of course, there's every likelihood that we're going to see a lot of fight ahead. Let's discuss it further now. I'm being joined on the program by a political affairs analyst, Jide Ojo, who joins us from Abuja. Mr. Ojo, thank you very much for joining us on the program. This is certainly not, whether we like it or not, this is certainly not the best opposition that the PDP would want to find itself in. And look, yes, there's a report out there that that committee has decided to throw the ticket open. But truth is that this is certainly not going to go down well with a lot of members of the party, especially those from the south of the country.
Definitely. It's going to have a backlash, and the forte of PDP in the last 10 years or thereabout has been the southeast and south-south. Let's do the maths, Deji. How many states in northern Nigeria is controlled by PDP? The 7 northwestern states, out of the 7, only Sokoto, to the best of my knowledge, is under the control of PDP. That's Tambuwa. In the northeast, you have Bauchi, Taraba. I think those are the 2.
And Adamawa.
Okay, and Adamawa. Those are the 3. Then in the southeast, you have Abia, you have Enugu.
All but yes, all but 2.
Yeah,
okay, 3.
You have
3 actually.
Abia and Anambra, Abia and Enugu, and Imo and Ebonyi used to be, but they're now under APC, and then the Anambra has been under GA. Then you go to south. You have Rivers,
Edo.
Rivers, Edo, Bayelsa, Delta. So the South asked for, out of 6, if not for the defection of Ben Ayade, it would have been 5. And so then in the Southwest, it's only the Oyo State that they have. In the North Central, I think it's I'm not sure APC, PDP
In the
has
North Central, you have Benue, of course.
only Benue. So what I'm saying invariably is that the photos of PDP has dwindled, and the chances of the party reclaiming the presidency in 2023 is very slim. It is slim to the extent that the motive that may have engineered their jettisoning of the zoning formula may have a backlash. Buhari will just be rounding up his 8 years in power. So who are the people that have come out in northern Nigeria? You have Atiku Abubakar, who is a front line, Bala Mohammed, you have Tambuwa, you have Saraki. And what is the whole essence of even zoning? Zoning is is a kind of affirmative action. Zoning is to ensure that power rotates among the different tribes, ethnic groups, and there is no domination, political domination of one group over the other. And some of us have been in the forefront of saying, after the 8 years of Buhari's presidency, it is time for power to come back to the South.
But what do you make of the argument of some, especially the northern voices and the PDP? They've been very vociferous about this, that look, even when you consider zoning, that in the PDP, the zoning arrangement is still not complete for the North, because according to them, Yaradua did not complete his term. And so that if you look at 1999 to this period, the North has been in power for a less number of periods now than the South. That's their argument. And for them, that in the PDP itself, the zoning arrangement as it is today is not complete for the North, because Yaradua did not do 2 terms. As a matter of fact, did not even complete his first term.
Well, they have a very plausible argument, and I've read what Don Pedro Obaseki, Dr. Don Pedro Obaseki pushed out the video where he was saying that the zoning has been in favor of southern Nigeria than it has been for northern Nigeria. It's a very valid argument, but again, Nigerians are not going to be looking at PDP.
Yes.
They are going to be looking at Nigeria. And if you know the strenuous efforts of someone like Obasanjo in 2007 for power to shift to North, you know that he had to persuade Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, who never really wanted to contest. He drafted him into the presidential race at the very last moment. I'm not sure if Umaru Musa Yar'Adua had presidential posters. It's barely a week to the presidency that we're just hearing that Umaru Musa, because the frontline candidate then was Peter Odili of Rivers State, if you recall. And so when he made that strenuous effort, unfortunately, no one knows tomorrow. The assumption was that Yar'Adua was going to do 2 terms, which is the constitutional 8 years. Unfortunately, barely 2 years into his presidency, he took ill, and he never recovered from that fatal sickness, terminal sickness. So the right thing for the PDP to have done as at that time was to just allow the Goodluck Jonathan to serve out the tenure of his principal, and then ensure that a northern candidate emerged in 2011. Unfortunately, they didn't do that, and that's where they got it wrong. Because if they have told President Umaru Musa, if they have told President Goodluck Jonathan to say, look, the party supremacy, you see Section 7(2)(c) of our Constitution talks about zoning and power rotation, and it is the turn of the North. But unfortunately, you know, that was what got President Olusegun Obasanjo, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, to even have to openly tear his PDP card. Yes. Because as at that 2011, what Obasanjo said Goodluck Jonathan told him was that he was going to do one term of 4 years. Unfortunately, Goodluck Jonathan reneged or was pressured by the South people that he has constitutional right to contest. So the constitutionality of his contest was what polarized the country, and you could see the number of lives that were lost as a result of post-election blues in 2011, where, according to Human Rights Watch, over 800 lives were lost across 13 northern states. So if the PDP had been upright and have stood by that zoning principle, they would have persuaded President Goodluck Jonathan to wait for at least till 2015 before he will have the right to contest. And then he will have served the presidency of whoever is the other candidate.
Now, that certainly did not happen. That certainly did not happen. And but you look at the current state of things. It appears the voices from the North and the PDP have sort of shifted away conveniently from the argument of zoning now. They're not talking about it. It's now open the field so that everyone can run. So they're actually not even making the argument that their own that in terms of zoning that they've actually not completed their own side of the whole zoning arrangement. Their argument now is open the field, let everybody run, let people from the west, east, south, and north run. Now, could we say they are taking this position because whether we like it or not, they sort of hold the ace in this party. Whether we like it or not, look, when it comes down to the party primaries, their candidates actually stand a better chance of winning the ticket of the party in their primary than any candidate from the South.
That is true. And you could see the diplomatic shuttle, people like Tambuwa, Saraki, and a couple of others have been making across the country. They have gone to meet the Maradona of Nigerian politics, that's former head of state, Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, and they have also been making all manner of overtures. But the pity I have for PDP is that it's not operating from a position of strength, but rather from a position of weakness. I would be more interested in who the APC feels as its next presidential candidate than I will be more concerned than PDP. You know why? The fortune of PDP have depleted, that it needs what is akin to miracle to be able to reclaim presidency.
And do you think this issue of zoning could further deplete the ranks of the PDP?
Definitely, definitely. Because if the Igbos who are angling for, to be given the affirmative action of getting endorsement to be to produce the next president, if they are shortchanged and then you decide to, for instance, give the ticket to Atiku Abubakar, who is making his 6th attempt at the presidency, it then means that the Igbos, who are already agitated as a result of indigenous people of Biafra's agitations, will further be indifferent to the political process.
And then you look at the North. The North would appear to be speaking in one voice in the PDP now, so to speak. I mean, they're already talking about presenting a consensus aspirant, even though it's called a candidate, a consensus aspirant from the North. So they want a situation where only one person from the North will come out and they will support the person against whoever would come out from the South. How do you see that playing out?
Well, it is too early in the day. I recall that even the Governor Samuel Ortom has come out to debunk the widespread speculation that they have jettisoned zoning. The point is that there is no smoke without fire. I think the report of that committee ought to have been made public. Maybe they are waiting for the National Executive Council of the party to meet before they will make it public. But whatever it is, like I said, PDP is operating from the position of weakness, not that of strength. In 2011, 2015, they were operating from position of strength. But you could see that how the jettisoning of zoning in 2011 worked to their disadvantage, because that was the abinga of why the part of the reason, let me put it that way, part of the reason why the Turaki Adamawa, Atiku Abubakar left the party with 5 governors in 2014. Recall that at their convention in Atiku Square, Atiku Abubakar led 5 governors, is it 5 or 7 governors of PDP out of the convention ground, and they formed the new PDP, who later joined the ranks of APC. And it is from there now that the fortunes of APC was swollen, and they were able to wrestle power from PDP in 2015. So the miscalculation of PDP in 2011 backfired in 2015, because as I was saying earlier, even when Obasanjo openly said Goodluck Jonathan told him he was going to do 1 term, but when Goodluck Jonathan reneged on his gentleman's agreement with Obasanjo and some of the power brokers in PDP, they left the party in annoyance, and he decided to run. Of course, the ranks of PDP had been grossly depleted ahead of the 2015 presidential election, which was how they played into the hands of the opposition.
And it's like the same thing is repeating itself now.
And the same thing seems to be repeating itself. So that's why I said PDP is not operating from a position of strength, because by now, what you should see is the migration, the migration from APC to PDP, arising from the disaffection that has been taking place in the APC. But you will see many of these
we're not seeing that.
That look, if we leave APC now, for which party now? It's only Kwakwanso that have taken his that's been courageous enough to go and join NNPP. Others are watching and waiting. And even after the congresses and the convention that was held on March 26, we have not seen any serious defection from APC to PDP. And they will need that numerical strength to be able to stand any chance in winning the presidential election of 2023.
All right, Jide Ojo, political affairs analyst, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for talking to us.
My pleasure, always a pleasure. Stay safe and stay blessed.
All right, thank you. We'll take a short break now, and we'll be right back to continue discussion on this very topic. Stay with us. All right, welcome back, and let's continue the discussion on the decision of the PDP to throw its presidential ticket open. I'm now being joined on the program from Abuja by Adewale Ajadi, who is a public affairs analyst. Mr. Ajadi, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Even though the PDP has not officially confirmed this, but the word is out there, and somehow there's been no denial of it, and somehow it appears to be the case, even though the National Executive Council still has to make a formal comment on it. But are you surprised in any way at all that the PDP has decided not to zone its presidential ticket?
A very good evening to you. Not completely surprised. Politicians are primarily about power rather than about principles, especially in Nigeria. So it's not particularly surprising. But you have to bear in mind that zoning itself is a very, very clumsy instrument for achieving representation of sorts. And the kind of representation it plays into is representation that gives power to particular sections of the population inartfully. It doesn't do it successfully. So it's really a kind of stop to the three main ethnic groups in Nigeria who are concerned about who is represented as the president. It rarely is as effective as a tool of proper participation.
But do you think this might in any way work against the party in the elections, especially in the south of the country?
It most certainly will. It most certainly will. Because if you look at it from the point of view that there has been agitation for representation of sorts in the South, it will be actually the most stunning kind of political theater to say this is just entirely state-managed presentation, and people are not particularly concerned about the representation, whether it is right or wrong. The notion that the whole hip-hop thing is about representation, the notion that the whole Yoruba nation thing is about representation are very clearly strong points that point in that direction. So I don't think the PDP will do itself great service politically to choose to ignore that agitation. However, on the other side of the balance is the fact that it has only one candidate that's of known quality, that's competed for the presidency a few times and is quite influential in the party. So I don't know it's whether it's real politics or politics of principle that's going to play out.
Now, if the party by chance wins the 2023 presidential election, it means, and the candidate that, I mean, if the party, for instance, fields a northern presidential candidate, and if you ask me, I think it's looking like that, and that candidate goes on to win the presidential election, there's every likelihood that the candidate will do another 8 years. So you would have a back-to-back presidency from the north for 16 years. I'm just wondering how that would sit for people in the south of the country, if that will not further divide the country.
Allow myself to be a bit unpopular by saying the whole issue of representation should always be secondary to the issue of participation. What we should have is real participation across the country. However, because what we always do is the elite fighting each other for who represents particular ethnic groups or particular zones, it's inevitable that we are going to have a very toxic space. We talk about insecurity right now. It's going to be so damaging insecurity in the next 8 years because there will be elements who will exploit that dissatisfaction and try to make it out that this is about hegemony from the north. There's so many things that we have to take care of in this country. Ultimately, what we have to address in this country, we are ignoring, which is the issue that our democracy should be a participatory democracy where everybody feels that they are involved and they own the governance of the country. If you look at it, sorry, let me add a little bit critical points that we are facing right now. The issue of banditry is an issue to some extent of participation. There's nobody that has access to those people in proper terms across the board within the governing elite. And so you can actually create enough disaffection in different parts of the country and make the elite of Nigeria the strangers to them, and people to feel that the government itself is a foreign government, so to speak, or some outsider government. This is what they've done to the Buhari government for 8 years. For most part, people have been saying it's an outsider government, it's an herdsman government, it's a Fulani government. All these things are critical things that we have to address. And we are not addressing it even with zoning. Because every time you zone to one side, another side is anticipating that it should be next. And if it's not next, it must make sure that everything does not work until it is done. And that also means that when the other side or the other people or whoever we consider other is in governance, whatever they do, we say they didn't do anything because we are waiting for the time when it's going to be our turn to get into governance. We have to deal with this issue. And I don't think that zoning deals with it, but I think we have to name it and we have to start dealing with it.
Now you look at this whole zoning debate in the PDP, it would appear that the northern voices are louder than the southern voices. And somehow it's those northern voices in the PDP that have prevailed now. to ensure that the ticket is thrown open. And that if you look at it somehow, whether we like it or not, the northern voices in the party would appear to have the upper hand.
Well, it's a game. Think about it. Who's the chairman of the committee that's looking into zoning?
From the north.
The same man that well, he claims now to be from the north. He said it was North Central and that President Buhari was Hausa Fulani and was killing his people. He spent most of his his time as governor, making sure that everybody knew that Hausa Fulani are killing his people and they are creating hegemony and they are kidnapping his people. Why isn't he saying that now? Why is it now suddenly acceptable that a candidate from within his party can be from the north, from the same Hausa Fulani group that he's been talking about all this time, is no longer the enemy? These are all games. These are all toxic political games that have been played by people. And we have to be able to, as Nigerians, make sure that the kinds of things that in principle the PDP is trying to achieve through zoning actually is happening in practice, which is that we have representation across the country, irrespective of where you come from, however diverse your group is, that you have access to the levers of power at different points in time. However, this kind of turn-by-turn arrangement that zoning does is an imprecise process. As you can see now, it's being forged again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mr. Adewale Ajadi, thank you very much for joining us on the program, and thank you for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so very much. Well, that's how much we can take on the program this week. We thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.